The extractive sector continued to be a significant revenue earner for Guyana. With declines in the rice and sugar industries, the importance of the sustainable use of the country's natural resources cannot be overstated. The mining sector continues to perform exceptionally well in spite of several challenges, such as impeded access to mining lands due to inclement weather. This week on Government in Action, we look at the performance of the extractive sector, mainly gold, bauxite and diamond mining, and their contributions to Guyana's economic development, as well as government's plans to sustain their development. President David Granger, speaking in September 2015 at the first gold pour at the Aurora gold mines, said that the plan for the mining sector must include the involvement of the state and citizens, particularly those in mining communities and settlements, as well as local and international stakeholders. He said that, as part of his government's overall plan, which would see the further development of the hinterland, every ministry will play a role in addressing issues affecting the industry, with a specific focus on creating a different strategy for security in the mining sector, with assistance from all stakeholders.
This plan incorporates specific policies because we are committed to ensuring that gold mining continues to be a major contributor to this country's economy, and particularly to the revenues that will be going into our sovereign wealth fund to look after our children and grandchildren. This industry is too important to be allowed to decline and to fall.
The gold mining sector has been performing relatively well, and last year Guyana recorded the highest declaration in the history of the country of 713,000 ounces of gold. And according to Minister of Natural Resources, Mr. Raphael Trotman, the country is on track to repeat this feat. However, government is cautiously optimistic since international market changes can impact local earnings. This year, government will be placing greater emphasis on small and medium-scale miners, since they have contributed to approximately 70% of the declared gold. This, Minister Trotman pointed out, is despite two large international mining companies operating here, namely Aurora Gold Mines and Troy Resources.
Which is really a testament to the hard work and dedication of our miners, Guyanese miners. So this year we are working with them to see how we could improve conditions, how we could level the playing field, and we can give incentives.
The minister acknowledged that there is always a demand for more incentives in the mining sector. However, he noted that this has to be weighed against the economy's performance to determine what can be given in the circumstances. The Ministry of Natural Resources will focus on allocating lands to syndicates, which are groups of small miners, with each group comprising 10 to 20 individual miners who do not have access to lands. The creation of syndicates is seen as a step towards empowering the small miners. The ministry officials are paying close attention to the success of the project to determine its feasibility in the long term. Technical Officer for Mining at the Ministry, Ms. Eulene Watson, during a recent interview, said that small miners are now empowered to have access to duty-free concessions on equipment which can be purchased through a collective effort, thereby reducing individual operating costs.
The Ministry had a meeting for small-scale miners, at which the small-scale miners were complaining that they did not have access to land. Coming out of that meeting, Minister mandated the closed area committee to see how we can make lands accessible to these. And during last year, over 200 of these small people who had no land were given access to land.
During that meeting held on March 30, 2017, Minister Trotman reminded the miners that the ministry has been mandated by the President to ensure all categories of miners, small, medium and industrial scale, can participate and benefit equally from the sector, and that it must be done in a way that respects the environment. The formation of syndicate bodies signals that government is serious about developing the sector by providing opportunities for development. Ms. Watson said the ministry is still in the process of compiling the guidelines that will govern the operation of these syndicates, with a focus on avoiding the sale of lands intended only for those miners who are part of a syndicate.
No one person should be in more than one syndicate. So, because we want to have as many persons without land benefit. So, if you already are part of a syndicate, you should not now be able to join up in another one. Give that to somebody else. In terms of incentives, one of the things that we were also hearing is that because the small man operated at a small level, he couldn't access. So we're hoping that in the syndicates now, it's like operating at a higher scale, so that that group would be able to have access to the duty free that the other miners would have, whatever is available.
In addition, miners receive waivers on their annual payments for mining lands, which Ms. Watson views as an additional incentive. In December 2016, the Ministries of Finance and Natural Resources and the Guyana Gold and Diamond Miners Association, GGDMA, renewed 2 contracts for concessions relating to the mining industry. Small and medium-scale miners benefit from duty-free concessions on imported equipment and a 10% tax reduction on fuel. The agreement provides for eligible gold miners to be exempted from the payment of custom duties on fuel, matting, all-terrain vehicles, ATVs, jackhammer drills, flex hoses, expanding metals, pumps, pump housing, impellers, shafts, and engines. Acting Commissioner of the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, GGMC, Mr. Newell Dennison, said that the interest in the mining sector continues to grow, with just under 1,000 applications for prospective mining permits and over 140 applications for mining permits. It is anticipated that these numbers would increase during the latter part of the year, especially with the new syndicates coming on stream.
I think, too, what has been fairly good for us, too, that is keeping the interest in the sector, is that the commodity price, gold price, has not been doing too badly. It's been hovering 1,200 plus, 1,250, 1,260 in some instances. So that has been something that keeps the interest going for the miners.
While the bauxite industry is not performing at the level it once did during the 1970s, Minister Trotman said that the sector is still performing fairly well. The world's demand for bauxite has dwindled over the decades, and its activity is mostly driven by the operations of China and other Asian countries. Therefore, as China's economy slows down, other parts of the world are affected. The Natural Resources Minister said that after observing current trends on the global market, it is fair to say that the demand for bauxite is slowly rising, even as the prices remain the same. However, the expectation is that these prices will rise steadily this year and continue into 2018.
Because we are a primary exporter of raw material, we have to wait until the economy has picked up. Suffice to say that the bauxite operations are conducted by Bosai Chinese, Rusal Russian. Together they employ about 1,000 persons directly, and of course multiply that by about 6. So about 6 to 10,000 persons are directly engaged, which is good. It is not doing badly. It is breaking even and making a small profit.
The government of Guyana will this year be spending more time assessing the future of the bauxite industry, and in celebration of 100 years of bauxite mining in Guyana in 2016, a study had been commissioned to look at the amount of reserves available and how technology can improve its production. The review was conducted by Mr. Lance Carberry and Mr. Sylvester Carmichael, 2 veterans within the industry. Minister Trotman said that government's intent is to construct an alumina smelting plant so that value can be added to the bauxite before it is exported. The ministry will seek additional uses for the natural gas, which is expected to be harnessed from offshore Guyana during the oil exploration.
One of the main requirements of an alumina plant is energy. And so Minister Patterson and I are actually speaking that even if we don't use the gas for power generation for GPL, or when we bring the hydro on the stream, that gas can still be available for an alumina plant. But so these are options that we're looking at.
According to Mr. Dennison, bauxite has been performing as expected and is currently at 85% of the projected production, stone at 70% of the projection, and sand at approximately 60% of the projection for this year. Guyana over the past 18 months has tripled its diamond production, and according to Mr. Trotman, these figures were double-checked to ensure that the diamonds are not being imported from elsewhere and declared locally, then re-exported, since this would contravene international conventions.
In some parts of the world, in Africa and so forth, diamonds are mined and known as conflict diamonds. They sustain wars, child soldiers, rapes and genocide and so forth. So we've recently just completed a study of the diamond trade in Guyana. We had a consultant look at it to see how we could strengthen what is happening.
The government had initiated the review of Guyana's Kimberley Process Certification Scheme, KPCS, because of the spike in diamond production. In 2016, royalty from diamonds exceeded the budgeted amount of $24 million by $63.9 million for the period January to October 2016. For 2016, 109,651 metric carats of diamonds were declared, which earned the government over $73 million in fees and royalties. In February, Cabinet approved the request for the expertise of a legal consultant to review the KPCS used for certifying diamonds. The KPCS was launched in 2003 in a bid to clean up the international diamond trade after it was recognized that diamonds were being used to finance wars and terrorism. Mr. Dennison reiterated that the government is working assiduously to ensure transparency in the industry, since a number of issues were brought to the Commission's attention this year.
We've had some issues there because there's a conversation that we're having not only with the producers but with the exporters. We're part of the Kimberley process, and we've been trying to tighten up a little on the sourcing of the commodity, and that has had some effects on the relationship between ourselves and the exporters and the producers and the exporters. But there's some things that have been put to us. I've had talks with the sector, the exporters, and I'm trying to see how we can smoothen the kinks so that there can be a pickup again in the latter half of this year.
The mining industry in Guyana has seen the loss of many lives, and this had prompted the need for stricter government regulations and enforcement of the mining laws to curb this situation.
Primitive gold mining practices which expose our hinterland residents to environmental degradation and destruction must be discontinued. There must be a mandatory process of land reclamation and reforestation, not optional, mandatory. The responsibility for the environment is not solely that of the state. It is the responsibility of those who own and operate mining concessions to ensure that after they would have ceased operations, they do not leave these huge abscesses.
Land reclamation is also an important aspect of sustainable mining practices. The GGMC has been conducting several flagship reclamation projects in areas such as Madhya, Patara-Siparuni region, Region 8, and Peruni-Cayuni-Mazaruni region, Region 7. A $54.3 million project was undertaken in Olive Creek, Middle Mazaruni, Region 7, and was a collaborative initiative between the GGMC and Karaya Mining Company, CMC. Minister Trotman had noted too that as Guyana transitions into a green state, the sustainable extraction of the country's resources must become standard practice. He said that the information gained from the project will aid the government in pushing for more aggressive reclamation. Miners are required to reclaim and backfill mined-out areas. Addressing a mining safety seminar held in July 2016 at the Arthur Chung Convention Center under the theme Putting Safety First in Mining, charting a course to cultivate compliance and strengthen enforcement. Minister Trotman noted that a collective role must be implemented and accepted. This, he said, must include a refined government policy, enhanced regulation, monitoring and enforcing by the GGMC, and improved educational ethics supported by technical institutes, the University of Guyana, and the companies that profit from the sale of excavators, ATVs, and mining equipment. Providing an update, GGMC's acting commissioner said officials have been working around the clock to ensure that miners comply with the rules and regulations of the commission. While noting that the commission has been stretched in terms of resources, Mr. Dennison assured that they remain the first responders in any given situation. He said there is a sense of self-regulation in the sector. However, he called for the code of practice to be passed into law to allow for better enforcement. In the area of occupational safety and health, Mr. Dennison said there is a high percentage of mining operators who recognize the importance of the use of safety gear and adhering to safe mining practices.
We have to be very forward-thinking and try to make arrangements because, especially in the case of the syndicates, which are going to be coming on, there is an expectation that we will have to shepherd them, at least in the beginning, so that they are able to be very compliant and that they are able in themselves to be collaborative and be in a way self-responsible for how they operate in this sector.
In addition, the GGMC is looking to incorporate information and communication technology into its operations and intends to create a database where all mining-related information will be easily accessed for monitoring and evaluation and other purposes. Plans are in train to improve the Commission's geology and geochemistry work, which will see, over the next 3 to 4 years, the entire Guyana being sampled and mapped in an effort to remove some of the guesswork that sometimes plays a part in fieldwork. The Commission also plans to diversify and generate interest in mining other minerals and chemical elements such as lithium. This has been Government in Action. I am Stacey Carmichael. See you next week.